Hi, Mario. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Recovered?
Huh?
Feeling good?
Yes, it's still, I don't know if I'm still positive or not.
What's he saying?
For having some symptoms.
I was positive on Thursday, so I don't know.
Okay,
All right, so feel better then. Hope you get fully recovered.
Thank you.
okay.
Put it in-
Susie? Sue?
Hello? I'm doing the video, trying to do the video.
Hi,
Hi, Susie. Hi, everyone.
how are you?
Hi, Mario. How are you?
Mario, how are you?
Better, thank
And
you.
Anna too.
Yeah, how is Anna?
Okay, better also.
Are you okay?
Yeah,
How did you feel? What was wrong? You had a cold?
At COVID.
looked like a very bad cold, but I had, it was positive. Both of us. But I'm checking tomorrow again.
You're going to check tomorrow.
Yeah,
Stuck. It's gonna annoy me.
So you've been home all day, the whole time?
yeah,
Wow.
sleeping most of the time.
Sleeping?
Sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Oh, is Italian COVID the same as the regular, as the American COVID?
Is it spicier?
Okay, good evening, everybody. We are on Sefer Shmuel Bet, Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph. We finished Perek
Good.
Hey last week.
That's what?
Perek Vav, that David conquered the Plishtim in last week's battle. This Perek serves as the Haftorah for Parsha Shmini. Parsha Shmini relates the death of the two sons of Aaron HaKohen, Nadav Avihu. And as we work through, Parsha Shmini has other things, which is the day of Shmini refers to the 8th day of the Miluim. Klal Yisrael had sinned the prior year in the Midbar, the first year after they went out of Mitzrayim. Let's do the following chronology.
My favorite thing.
Vav Sivan, they received the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Sinai for 40 days. If you make a calculation, Vav Sivan was really Zion Sivan. We learned today in the Daf Yomi that Moshe pushed it off one day. So 40 days from there is Yud Zion Tammuz. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down Yud Zion Tammuz, sees Klal Yisrael worshiping the Egel Zav, he breaks the luchos. By the way, Hashem didn't tell him to do it. He did it on his own. And then eventually HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Asher Shibarta, Chazal say, Asher Koach Shibarta. You did the right thing. Because Moshe Rabbeinu made a Kal V'chomer. He said, Kol ben nechar lo yochel bo. The Korban Pesach is only one mitzvah out of 613. But it said somebody who worships Avodah Zarah can't eat of it. Here I'm bringing out the whole Torah, Tariq mitzvahs. Klal Yisrael is worshiping Avodah Zarah. Kal V'chomer, they can't receive the Torah. So he broke it. And Hashem agreed. So he goes up another 40 days to daven for Klal Yisrael. Hashem wants to destroy Klal Yisrael. And on Rosh Chodesh, so there's 40 days from Yud Zayin Tammuz is Chavtes Av, and then Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem, fine, I'll forgive them, but we have to write another set of luchos. So the next day, Rosh Chodesh Elul, he goes up for another 40 days. So really, Moshe Rabbeinu spent 120 days in Shemayim, 40 prior to the receiving of the Torah. I'm sorry, 40 days after Vav Sivan where he received the Torah, 40 days to daven, and now the Psal Lacha, the new writing of the new luchos, takes place over the next 40 days. What's 40 days after Rosh Chodesh Elul?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, right? 30 days of Elul and 10 days of Tishrei. So he brings down the second luchos Yom Kippur. The next day, Parshas Vayakel, Chazal tell us, the day after the Yom Kippur, Parshas Vayakel is spoken, and the Parshas of Truman Tetzaveh, they're now given a command. You know what? I gave you kapora, but you're not going to be the same after the Egel like before the Egel. Hashem had a whole way of he's going to run Klal Yisrael before the Chet Egel. Now we need a Mishkan for various reasons, because we showed by the Egel that we wanted some kind of physical whatever. So the Mishkan represents the Karbonos and the connection we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Mishkan. And they were told to gather copper and silver and gold and all the things. And they were finished collecting everything Chaf Hei Kislev, Chanukah. So the fact that later on, a few thousand years later, the Chashmonaim are going to have a Nes Chanukah, it's all connected to the fact that Chaf Hei Kislev in the Midbar was the Mishkan was technically finished, but was not erected. They waited to do the erection of the Mishkan 7 days, the last 7 days of Adar. This is after the first year that they were in the Midbar. And Bayom HaShmini is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the second year. And that is the day of the Hakomasam Uviyom Hakimasam Mishkan. It's like the day, Chazal say, it's like when the heaven and earth were created. Heaven and earth were created. 10 special things happened on that day. For 7 days, Moshe Rabbeinu acted as a Kohen Gadol and erected it and put it down, erected it, put it down. On this day, Yom HaShmini, the Mishkan is erected permanently, and Aaron HaKohen takes over the Kohen Gadol. Then Nadav Avihu, on that day, did a chet. We don't know what it was. They brought a strange fire. They were Shesuya Yayin. We're not going to go into that today. But on that day, they died. Now, this Perek in Shmuel that we're about to learn is the Haftorah for Perek Shmini. All of us, as we learn through today, maybe next week, let's try to think, why was this chosen as the Haftorah for Parsha Shmini? That's one thing we want to keep in mind. After David HaMelech is now anointed, is chosen king, and he's anointed again by all of Klal Yisrael, there were 3 mitzvos, Chazal tell us, that the Bnei Yisrael were commanded when they crossed the Yarden. Minui Melech, appointing a king, Mechias Amalek, wiping out Amalek, and Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So Mechias Amalek has already taken place, not fully, and David will do some more of it, but in the sense there's been Minui Melech, Mechias Amalek. What's left? Binyan Beis HaBechira. This is what David has in mind, and the first thing he's going to do is he's going to bring the Aron HaKodesh. Let's remember, this is now the beginning, David HaMelech has ruled for 7 years in Hebron over Shevet Yehuda. He's going to rule 33 years as the king over both Yisrael and Yehuda. Prior to David, there was 11 years of Shmuel and 2 years of Shaul. 11 plus 2 is 13, 7, so it's 20 years. What happened right before Shmuel became the Navi? Well, Eli HaKohen died. He fell backwards in his chair when the Plishtim came to conquer the Mishkan in Shiloh, and they took the Aron prisoner. The Aron was in Plishtim for 4 months, and then they sent it back. They got the hemorrhoids. They had so much trouble with the Aron in the cities of Plishtim. They put the Aron on a wagon with cows, and the cows were singing, and it ended up, remember in Beit Shemesh, where then there was a Magefa there, they didn't treat it with COVID, and it ended up in Kiryat Ya'arim. And it's been in Kiryat Ya'arim for 20 years. 11 of Shmuel, 2 of Shaul, 7 years of David. There's going to be another 33 years. So this Perek is going to detail how the Aron was moved to Ir David. David in Shmuel Bet is going to desire to build the Beis HaMikdash, but we know what's going to happen. He's going to be told, no, you're a man of war, so your son is going to do it. But the Aron was kept in Ir David in Yerushalayim. So for another 33 years, 20 plus 33, that's 53. Shlomo HaMelech takes over as king. He builds the Beis HaMikdash in the 4th year of his reign. That's 57 years. Why is that number? That's when Shlomo, which Mirz Hashem will learn in Sefer Malachim, will bring the Aron that's in Ir David into the Beis HaMikdash. For those 57 years, right? 11 plus 2 plus 7 plus 33 plus 4. The Mishkan has been in the cities of Nov and Givon. 13 in Nov until Shaul destroyed it, and then 44 years in Givon. What do we mean by the Mishkan? The Mizbeach. The Aron and the Mizbeach were separate. Once the Aron was taken prisoner by the Plishtim, the Aron and the Mizbeach were separated. They were only reunited 57 years later when the Aron was put back in the Beis HaMikdash. Why is this important? The Meiri, one of the Rishonim, and I'll maybe read it when we get there, will tell us that this is the secret for why a bama is allowed to be used. During these 57 years, you could bring a korban in a backyard mizbeach. You didn't have to go up to Nov and Givon. You had to go up to Nov and Givon for the korban Pesach. You couldn't bring a korban chatas in your backyard. But an ola and a shlamim, you could bring in a bama in your backyard. Somehow, separating the mizbeach from the aron, it's not sholem. And once again, you remember in Shiloh for 369 years, the mizbeach and the aron were together. There were prohibitions of the bama. The 14 years in Gilgal, during Yoshua's time, before they built the Mishkan in Shiloh, the Aron was with Yoshua when they went and did battle. Remember when they circled Yericho, the Aron was with them. The Aron there was also separated from the Mishkan, from the Mizbeach. So those 14 years, there was Heter Abamas. Then 369 years, no Bamas. These 57 years, Bamas again, because of what I just described. And then when Shlomo finally brings the Aron together, no more Bamas. So this is a very important chronology. It appears in Shas. It's a very important yesod for all of us to have. So this perek, now, many of us don't know this perek from the Haftorah. Why is that? Many years, Parsha Shmini is always in the mix with the Daled Parshios. It's right before Pesach. So Parsha Shkolim, Parsha Zachor, Parsha Spara, Parsha Zachodesh. Sometimes Pesach is in Shmini. So many years we don't read the regular Haftorah of Shmini. That's why some of us will recognize the parak that we're going to learn now, but some will not remember it that well because we don't learn it every year. Because some years the Haftorah for that Shabbos on Shmini is not, we don't read the regular Haftorah, we read a special Haftorah. Any comments, questions about any of this introduction I've just given? Well, so let's start. Vayosef David et kol bachur b'Yisrael shloshim aleph. Yosef gathers again young men, 30,000. Yosef, Rashi says, lesov, to gather. Lefi shenesfu alav kishimlichu b'Chevron. What's the Vayosef od? What's the additional gathering? Because they gathered when they anointed him in Chevron. So this is the second. That's how Rashi learns. The Abarbanel says that's a second because he gathered the army when he was fighting Plishtim. So that's the second gathering, says. Now, there is also an extensive prakim in Divrei Hayamim. Mirz Hashem will learn that when we get there, Mirz Hashem as a group, because I know many of us have not learned Divrei Hayamim, and there's a recounting of this whole episode in a different way, and the Malbim brings it, that David sent messengers to every city in Israel. He wanted delegates from each city to send their Zakanim and their Shoftim to be part of the entourage that's going to accompany the Aron being brought up to Yerushalayim. He says, now the king is going to live there. The Aron should be there as well. Pasuk Beis. Vayakam vayelech David v'cholam misharito. Mi ba'alei Yehuda. Look at Rashi. He Kiryat Ye'arim. K'mo shenemar b'Yoshua v'atar gvul ba'ala. He Kiryat Ye'arim. So ba'ala, the word Baal, of course, there's an idol Baal, but we also have it in the Gemara, a stay Baal, like a plain, like a flat field.
Ernie, can I interrupt you a second?
Please.
There's another interpretation on the first pasuk on the word bachur, which with a ches means chosen. Talmud Yerushalmi refers to them as David HaMelech anointed, gave smicha to 30,000 young Talmidei Chachamim. That it was by appointing a large number of Rabbanim with smicha to help with the consecration or the carrying of the Aron to Yerushalayim, to
Right.
Har Tzion.
And the Yerushalmi there says, Vayosef Od means 90,000. Vayosef is another 30,
Yeah.
and Od is another 30. And Achitophel he didn't appoint. We'll see Achitophel is the one who gave him Musar for all the various problems that are going to occur here. And even though he's not the one he appointed it.
And there he gave smicha without, putting hands on, but gave it to 100 of these people at a time. Obviously, he chose 30,000, or depending on the interpretation, 90,000. But it's a pretty amazing sight to see him giving smicha to so many young people there.
Right. So the word, the Kiryat Yarim has another name, Mibale Yehuda. And what's the word that they went from Mibale Yehuda? You should go, they went to Bale Yehuda. No. So there's a debate, what's going on here. The Pashat Pshat that the Radak learns is the pasuk is referring to they went there, and now this pasuk is describing their movement from Bale Yehuda to Yerushalayim. I sent a picture to everybody in the Navi chat about the movement. It shows you where Kiryat Yarim is in relationship to Yerushalayim. La'alot misham et aron Elokim, asher nikra Shem. What's the name of this? Shem Hashem Tzvakos Yoshev HaKruvim Alav. The heavenly host that's sitting on top of the Aron, which is the Kruvim. Some say, Melamed Shaluchos v'Shivrei Luchos Munachim ba'Aron. There is a debate exactly which Luchos, which Aron is there. Some say that the Luchos, the Aron with the Luchos, the Shivrei Luchos were taken by the Plishtim is only one Aron, and the one that they sent back, this is exactly the same one. Some say no. Remember, Shaul HaMelech, that we learned that Chazal took the Luchos from the Aron, saved them from Plishtim. Therefore, only the Shivrei Luchos were there. Either way, we're going to learn Pshat that it was the regular Aron. They carried the Aron in a new wagon. So the new wagon is shelo hishtamish bo hedyot. Nobody, a regular person used it. Mishum kedusha sa'aron hishtamshu bagolo chadasha. That's how Radak learns. But v'yesh oimrim Rashi and Moed Katan shaisa oisa agalasha shigru plishtim ba. It's the same wagon that the plishtim sent back the Aron. They never touched it. Uva osa agalai viu David army beis avinadav li'er David, and it was the same one that they're now using to bring up to Yerushalayim. One second, please. This is Dr. Hagenstein. Oh, I'm so glad you called back. One second, everybody. This is a very important call. I'm sorry. I'm giving Mishkan. What, it wasn't recorded? Oh, he stopped recording it. Okay. It's very important that some of the people on the shir here, this Thursday night at Tzvi Reisman's house, Rav Tzvi Rimon, who many people feel is going to be the next chief rabbi in Israel, is going to be visiting Los Angeles, and he's going to be giving the shir Thursday night. I made the arrangements with Ronnie Nagel, who's hosting him. Meanwhile, we didn't have anybody on this side of town, but it's going to work out for all the people on our side of town at Tzvika's home Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And we'll send some more information about that as well. Okay. So we talked about the Agola Chadasha. Now, hang on. 1 second. So we said the Shem Hashem Tzvokos, and the Baba Basra Gemara Yudalid Amid Bey says, Melamed Shaluchos v'Shivrei Luchos Munachim Bo'aron. And Rav Yochanan, that the not only were the second Luchos that Moshe brought down on Yom Kippur put in the Aron, but the broken pieces of the first Luchos were also put there. Now there's a very beautiful, I would say, an analogy made because of that. It says in Gemara Menachos, Tzadik Tes, Shetalmud Chacham Sheshachach Talmudo Machmas Oinsoy. A Talmud Chacham who let's say, loses his memory because of illness. She'eino Hagin Bo Minig Bizoyon. A Chas v'Sholom, a Talmud Chacham like that should be treated without COVID. That even the Shivri Luchos are kept in the Aron with the intact Luchos. So a Talmud Chacham who loses his limud because of illness, and Nishtagadak, we've had a lot of Talmidei Chachamim like that, who, have dementia and other illnesses like that. They have to be treated with the same covet. So it's a Musar HaScale from the Musar Nevi'im. Not only that, we learn another din from this Agola Chadosh, Minayin Lechacham, Shekavoda B'mita Rishona, Shenamar vayarkivet aron elokim lagala chadasha. Moed Cotton says that a Talmud Chacham should be taken out. Let's say the person passes away in his house. You should take him out of the house on the same bed that he was passed away on. Chacham shemeis kavod lo tzimi beiso b'mita rishona, v'lo l'shanoso mimita l'mita, not to move him from one bed to another. Sharei ha'aron eviu David mibeis avidadav le'ir David al oso agala chadasha sheshigra plishtim ba. They use the same aron, the same agala. From there we learn, right, a Talmud Chacham is like a walking Sefer Torah. We learn the same dinim. So let's complete the pasuk. The home of Avinadav is where the aron was. V'uza v'achyo b'nei Avinadav. Uzzah and his brothers. Nohagim es hagala chadasha. Avinadav and one of his brothers was leading in front, and Uzzah was on the side of the wagon, walking and accompanying the wagon. Achyo walked in front. Uzzah walked on the side. The David v'chol Beis Yisrael mesachakim lifnei Hashem. The David and the entourage, the 30 side, they're happy, but look at the word that the Navi uses, mesachakim. Like they're playing. It's not a serious simcha. They're using becholat seif roshim, they're using juniper wood, uvikinoras guitars, uvnevolim harps, uvitupim and drums, uvimenananim, uvitzeltzalim cymbals, and other musical instruments.
Is this where we learn how to be machnis a new Sefer Torah?
Well, right now, the method that they did was not appropriate. We're going to see very soon what happens. Vayavo ad Gora Nachon. We'll see why it was called that. Vayishlach Uzzah l'aron elokim vayochezbo. Uzzah stretched out he saw maybe that the aron was going to fall. He stretches out his hand. Vayochezbo kishamtu abokar. Vayicharaf Hashem be'Uzzah. Hashem gets angry. Vayakeu Shem elokim al hashal. He strikes Uzzah vayamet Shem and he dies there. Im aron elokim. So let's unpack this a little bit. Look at Rashi Pasuk Gimel. David HaMelech made a tremendous mistake by bringing up the aron in a wagon. Shafilu Tinok, I'm reading Rashi Pasuk Gimel, you can all read with me. Shafilu Tinoko shel Beis Rabban yoidinoso. Even a child in Cheder knows. The Bnei Kahat were given the special job of carrying the aron on their shoulder, but they couldn't carry it directly. They had staves. The aron had rings, sticks were placed through it called staves, and they carried the aron on these staves. You've seen the pictures in, I don't know, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Lahavdil, or whatever, that the aron was carried on the shoulder. Now, David in Tehillim Kuf Yud Tes said, Zmiros hayuli chukecha beves megurai. Your Torah is like song to me. Chazal see in that a problem. Nenash, lavoli dekach umes uza ayado. Because he treated the words of Torah lightly, he referred to it as song. We're going to unpack that a little bit as well. He was nenash, that this whole teches, this whole parade, and on to bring the aron was the simcha was damaged by the misa of Uzzah. Lefichach kasheviu mebeis oived. So now the pasuk's going to tell us they brought it. David HaMelech stopped and brought it to somebody else's house, which we'll see Oved Agiti. 3 months later, they brought it to Yerushalayim. But then they brought it the proper way. Bakatef, on the shoulders. Shenemar b'divrei yomim. Vayomer le'am atem roshei avot lalvi'im iskatru atem b'chechem v'leitem et aron Hashem. It's only supposed to be carried by Leviim. Uzzah was not a Levi. So, number one, he was not a Levi. Number two, they didn't carry it by their hand. They carried it on a wagon. So the question is, what, David HaMelech, how do we explain that? David HaMelech doesn't know this din? Two approaches. A Rashi in Divrei Yomim says like this: Ma ra'a David shirkiva lagula chadasha. Why did David do this? V'lo b'masa levim kasher asa k'shevi oto misham l'tzion b'achrona. Like the second time he's going to do it properly. Why did he make a mistake? Lefishi Amar David. Kol umat shaboy like k'sheshivu plishtim alagula chadasha. Well, the plishtim sent it back on the wagons. Vayasimu et aron Hashem alagala. Toz David hayam mishum sheratzah lasot k'mo she'asu plishtim. And that was not right. The Jews, we'll see in a minute why he treated the plishtim different, but the way the Jews have to do it, you cannot follow other nations. They do one thing, we'll see in a minute how the Musar Nevi'im learns why. We have to do it our way. The Radak says, Ki lo yechet b'zeh im yisrael b'agala avu pi shekaz b'kasev ki omar v'osos zman b'midbar tziva Hashem kein lifishaya mishkan nasa b'galot tziva lo seder mekatev. They're in the midbar for 40 years. They used wagons to schlep the Mishkan around. So they wanted to differentiate between the Mishkan and the Aron. So the Mishkan was taken by wagons, so they'll take the Aron by their shoulder. Ki kedushas Aron gedor lemikdushas Mishkan. But that's only in the midbar. And this is in the Eretz Yisrael. We don't need to worry about that. The Gra, the Vilna Gaon says, Dafka b'doa midbar, shar b'nei Yisrael b'madrega gavoa me'od. B'nei Yisrael were on such a high madrega in the midbar. Hayu karov l'shchina zacha lisa sa'av lucha shabalaka. He learns just the opposite. That only there in the midbar were they allowed to do that. Now in Dor Shel David, they were not on a madrega. So he didn't have the schus. So really he wants to say that they had to do it that way. But that's not how most of the Rishonim learn. Now, so number one, it says, "Vayisau mi beit Avinadav." Manas. What is Asher begiva im Aron Elokim? What was taken with the Aron Elokim? Manasa imo, says the Medrash Rabbah. Argas Shargos Plishtim Dorn Lelokei Yisrael Shalom Sefer Torah Munas. The Plishtim sent back a box of gifts made up of gold, golden mice, golden hemorrhoids, if you remember, some strange gifts. And the Sefer Torah was placed on that Argaz. This was also included in the wagon. Why? The Musar Nevi'im says, Masha Sefer Torah Munach, Aloso Argaz. The Argaz haya le'od she'i afshar l'shum uma lishlot al Aron Hashem. The gifts that the Plishtim sent back, that no other nation could have the Aron in their midst. They had to send it back because of the punishment they got. So that's a symbol l'dorot. Shekol zman she'Yisrael yushomim es haTorah, I efshar l'shum oma lishlot aleim. If Klal Yisrael observes the Torah, no other nation will have power over us. Then we said, Vayishlach Uzzah l'Aron Elokim, Vayochuz ba kisham tu abakar. Armele HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Uzzah, Aron noisav nasa. The Aron carries those that are trying to carry it. Hu atzma l'kol shekem. So of course the Aron can carry itself. Because we learned in Sefer Yoshua, B'shah she'avru Yisrael sayarden, Nishara konim in Aaron mitzada mizrach shel Yarden. The Jewish people were on the east side of the Jordan. The Jordan split. The people went from east to west. Now they're in Eretz Yisrael. The river closes. The Kohanim and the Aron remained on the east side. How did they get over? Remember, the Mizbeach carried them. The Mizbeach by Nace lifted over the water. The Kohanim flew with the Aron and they landed on the other side. So the Aron is no sayas nasav. Or nobody needs to carry the Aron. The Aron can carry itself. So you, Uzzah, you thought that you have to hold up the Aron? Others say that the sin of Uzzah was he wasn't from Shevet Levi, and he did not have the right to touch the Aron, because the Levim also never touched them. They had to, they had to carry him with the staves, like we learned. Yet, it says in Sota Lamed Beis, Vayamet Shamim Aron Elokim. Uzzah died there with the Aron. Ma Aron Kayim LaOilam, Af Uzzah Ba LaOilam Haba. Just like the Aron is forever, because Yoshio HaMelech buried it years before the Churban. So Uzziah is also in Olam Haba. So why would we think that he would lose his Chelik Olam Haba? In order for the Chazal to tell us, that he has his Olam Haba. Because he went directly to Olam Haba. He didn't have to go through any, people sometimes have to go through cleaning and sea roof and aish. He didn't need any of that. And why was he zoicha to this madreka? I'm going to read it in Hebrew. Mishum sheniskadesh ayado shem shamayim. Through the misa of Uzzah, there was Kiddush Hashem. Why? Ki b'mita Torah ukol b'nei Yisrael kama magia kedusha sa'aron. With his death, they saw how careful we have to be with the Aron. V'ad kama tzrichim litnaheg imog v'kedusha. Listen to what the Musar Anavim says. V'hu haya domeh ba'ota sha'a l'nodav avihu. Uzzah, because he's Mekadesh Shem Shamayim. This is the connection. At that moment, he's like Nodav Avihu, Shagam al Yodam Niskadeh Shem Shamayim. Nodav Avihu's dash led to Kiddush Shem Shamayim. Ki mehem lamdu az, ladad at kama tzrichim liyod zehirim, livli lavor al shum davar bavor samishkan. With the death of Nodav Avihu, Klal Yisrael learned how careful they had to be in the Mishkan. Lachein, mipnei shemitato hevia lidei kedushas Hashem, zacha shiel chalko tekef olam haba. This led for Uzzah as well to go immediately to olam haba. And now we understand a little bit the connection between Parsha Shmini and this Haftarah.
Ernie, you have a question?
Yes.
We know that besides his touching the Aron, his brother Achio was walking in front of the Aron Kodesh, which is which he should not have been doing, because you're not showing your respect to the Aron Kodesh by having your back to it. And actually, in Beis Knesset, we're not supposed to turn our backs when the Aron Kodesh is open. So my question is, how come Achio was not punished? How come only Uzzah?
It's a good question, but it seems like this issue of touching the Aron was a higher level of an avon, because it also says, but there are psukim that talk about misa if you touch the Aron in the improper way. Achio didn't touch it, or didn't try to touch it. By the way, some Meforshim say Uzzah didn't really touch it. He tried to touch it. It's lack of emunah as well. But on the other hand, his death in that act shows this big Kiddush Hashem that we just described.
It's interesting also that his brother is Avinadav, which is the same root as Nadav.
They're the sons of Avinadav.
Right, but Avinadav is like Nadav and Avihu.
Nadav and Avihu, but nice, very, very interesting, very good shot. That's very good shot. Goran Nachon, by the way, in Divrei Yomim it says it's called Goran Kidon. Kidon is like a spear. So the first time they went, it's like a spear because of the death of Uzzah. Later on, it was Nachon when it went to the other house, which we're going to learn shortly, and it was blessed there. Let's go weiter. First, Vayicharaf Hashem be'Uzzah vayokesh Shem Elokim ala shal. What is this shal? Shal, Rashi says it's a shgaga. He made a mistake to try to grab it. He went to the bathroom in front of it. Because the word uvishil yasa, like shil yasa refers to like the placentia, or the word shilshul, right? Shal, the word shilshul. Davra mutal mimala lamata. So pretty hard to, the pshat where it says that he went to the bathroom, then why would he go to Olam Haba? We learn Rashi's, we go with Rashi's pshat that he was a shoygeg. That he didn't recognize that the Aron has the power to carry itself. The Abarbanel writes about 4 Averos that they did. Shelo hayalem litena Aron ba'gola, rak hayalem lalviim lisao ta'aktefan. They should have been carried by Leviim on their shoulders. Lo hayal l'shamadam liga ba'arongo. You can't touch the Aron itself. Elakol ishtamshu shabo hayalahem lasosadech abadim. They should have used the staves. For example, Bernie's a gabbai, I'm a Baal Koirei. We're not allowed to touch the Sefer Torah with our bare hand. If we have to touch the Sefer Torah, we use a talus. Very similar halachas. Then lo haya le'uza shai Yisrael lishtamish ba'aron davorazo dafka b'nei Levi. He was a non-Levi. And then he lacked emunah because he thought the Aron would fall, and he should recognize that the Aron's not going to fall. The Ramban says yesh chiyuv misa b'negiyas Aron when it says v'lo yavo liros kivala lakodesh v'mesu. So we know very clearly why Uzzah was killed, because of the touching of the Aron. However, the Rambam says no, it was not an Isser of Negiyas Aron. He explained a different reason for it. Machlokes Ramban and the Rambam regarding that. Pasuk Zayin. Vayicharaf Hashem be'Uzzah. Vayokesh Shem Elokim ala shal. We learned it. Vayam Sham im Aron Elokim. We said im Aron Elokim. That's the pshat that he went to Shemayim. He went to Olam Haba as well. Vayichar leDavid. Now, what doesn't it say? It doesn't say Vayichar af. Whenever the pasuk says Vayichar af, means somebody was angry. Vayichar leDavid means David was angry at himself. Al asher paratz Hashem peretz be'Uzzah. That this sort of ruined the party. Vayikra lamakom hahu peretz Uzzah arei hamazeh, and therefore they named it Peretz Uzzah. Vayar David is Hashem bayom hahu. Vayira David is Hashem bayom hahu. Vayomer eich yavo elai Aron Hashem. David now had fear for Hashem. Now, the Meforshim point out, David was somebody who worshipped Hashem with ahava. We worship Hashem with yira and ahava. Usually, when we're children and we're taught about Yiddishkeit, we're fearful. Don't eat this, don't do this. We're always supposed to be fearful. We're all supposed to have yiras Hashem. But it's supposed to grow into avas Hashem. That's why it says, V'ahavtas Hashem lokecha. We're supposed to elevate our avodas Hashem to Abba, and David HaMelech showed that all the time in Tilim, etc. All of a sudden, we're told David is fearful, and that's why he saw that he was on a different madrega. All of a sudden, he says, "How can I bring the Aron to me to Yerushalayim? I fell from a madrega." So David changed his mind. I'm not going to bring the Aron. Vayoteru David base Oved Edom Agiti. He brings it to Oved Edom. Now, Oved was a Levi, and he lived in Gat, so that's why he was called the Giti. I just wanted to read the Gemara in Sota Lamed Hey. Midnei man nenesh David. Midnei shekar ledivrei Torah Zmiros. He referred to Torah Zmiros. Shenemar. Zmiros hayu lichukecha beveis megurai. Armalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu divrei Torah shekasuv bahem hitifei necha bo veinenu, that you have to study it so hard that it's like impossible. Ata karo so Zmiros. Hareni machshilcha bedover shafilu tinoka shel beis rabban yoidin oso. I'm going to make you a mistake in even things that a cheder child knows. Like it says, Livnei Kahas lo natan ki avodas hakodesh shalayim because if you so. So it was a punishment to David. It shows Shalohaya Amal b'divrei Torah. He wasn't working hard in divrei Torah. That's why it was just like a song, Dover Kal. And by carrying the Aron on your shoulders also is a siman and a remez that you're not going to be Zoche in Torah until you work hard at it. It doesn't come easy. Now, we said one of the reasons he used the wagon because he saw the Plishtim do it. Now, why when the Plishtim do it wasn't considered a sin? And with David it is. The Aron is so holy that only very important people should be dealing with the Aron. Now, listen to what the Musar Nevi'im says. Tov haya yoter, by the Plishtim to have the animals carry it than they carry it. Ki habehemos hayu toivos mehem.
Well,
They were such a degraded people that the behemoths were better in that situation. Aval Am Yisrael, shehigiu l'dei chashivas gedoyla, roy haya lehem yoter, shehem ba'atzmam yutunim es ha'aron. V'lo l'seiso to bagalosh habehemoths yu v'lichos oso. For us, it's a bizoyon if the animals carry it and not we don't carry it. In Divrei Hayomim, we Oved Edom Agiti is miyuchas to Shevet Levi. So already David is repairing one of the problems. He's making sure that only a Levi has to deal with it. So we can see there's tshuva going on. Vayeshev Aron Hashem Beis Oved Edom Agiti Shlosha Chadoshim. The arm was there for 3 months. Vayivarch Hashem es Oved Edom Veskol Beito. And Hashem, Rashi says, Ishto ushmona kalosei yoldu shisha bonim b'keres echad. His wife and his 8 daughters-in-law gave birth to sextuplets. So there was a bracha in the house of Oved Edom. So they knew there was a signal to David that everything's forgiven. Now, from this, in brachas, Samech Gimel, we'll conclude with this chazal. Pasach Eliezer b'not Rabbi Yosef Glili, b'chvod achsanya, v'darash. He was blessing his host. Like when you go to somebody's house, you give the host a bracha. How did he give the bracha? Vayivarch Hashem es Oved Edom, b'avur Aron Elokim. V'alod v'ran kal v'chomer. Uma Aron shloi achol v'shasa. The Aron didn't eat or drink. Elakibed v'ribetz lefanov. He swept in front of the Aron and cleaned the floor. A person hosts a Tamid Chacham in his house, and eats and gives him to eat and drink. Gives him money, that he will be blessed. What's the bracha? It's a special bracha for fertility, for having children, of being a machnis oirech. Again, what do we see so far in this parak? The tremendous analogy between the Aron and as Talmid Chacham, and Sefer Torah, and vice versa, back and forth. So a lot of the dinim that we learn about all of that comes from this parsha. Okay, you know, it's 9 o'clock. We will finish this parak and probably start the next parak next week, because a lot of the drushes that I wanted to go through in this, we've already done. So the remaining part of this parak will finish, and we'll probably start the next parak. Comments, questions, Aros?
Why does it, when it talks about Uzzah, it spells his name with an aleph at the end, but when it gives the location of where Peretz Uzzah, it spells it with a hey at the end. This is in Pasuk Ches.
I see. I don't know whether it's a digduk rule or whether or not we can darshan or something from there. I don't see anybody commenting on it, but I think it's a good ha'ara. But some, maybe just digduk. In terms of its location in the pasuk and how it's being used, etc., as a common name.
Well,
Also,
certainly, go
Yeah,
ahead. Go ahead, finish, Ellen, please.
It also, one of the comments in the Reuben edition at the bottom says, Oved Edom Hagiti, the sages and the commentators identify this Obed Edom with the Levite by the same name mentioned among the gatekeepers in Divrei Hayamim. He was called Gittite because he had once lived in Gat. David thus rectified one of his errors by putting the ark in the care of a Levite. The sages interpret the name as a description of the man. He was an Oved, a loyal servant of God, and his conduct was an embarrassment to David. Edom meaning red, as if to say that David became red in the face because Obed Edom welcomed the ark when David stayed away from it.
Where is it?
Right. Absolutely. Very, very well said.
Yeah.
The comment I wanted to make is the bracha that each one of the